Welcome back. Have you ever been in a position where you needed to quickly confirm tax rates, filing deadlines, penalties, or defaults, and other tax obligations? Many will say this is a very difficult tax. That is, if they bother to even go to find out. Taxation affects investment decisions, but the risk is not whether tax would be paid. It is the uncertainty of what, when, how. That's where the problem is. Ironically, what businesses and investors need as a matter of priority is not tax incentives, but the removal of tax disincentives. Nigeria is currently facing significant challenges as a result of the falling oil prices, which has negatively affected income flow. And the government has talked about turning, diversifying, and looking at other areas of raising revenue. And one of those areas is taxation. So that means we need to look at the tax system in Nigeria. Is it worth it? What Nigeria has been operating was that which was set up in 1960, 1961 to be precise, based on the British tax laws. That's where we've been. There's been some little bit of modification in 1985 and in 2010, but at the end of the day, is it what would take this country to the next level? Well, I have a taxation expert. He's the President Association of Professional Bodies of Nigeria, former President of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Mr. Folusho Fashoto. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning.
A real quick one. Let's just look at an overview of the Nigerian tax system. What would you say it is like?
Well, the Nigerian tax system started pre-independence, and it has evolved over a period of time. It started with colonial mentality that whenever you see a taxman, you are seeing an evil person. So you need to pick the race. And the people hide in the holes, people run into the farm, and so on and so forth.
Isn't that what I was told, even in the Bible days?
Well, it was like that, but Jesus Christ was able to remove that fear from the people, and the need to comply with tax system. But over the time, the situation has changed and is still changing. In year 2000, the study group on review of Nigerian tax system came up with a pronouncement that taxation should be seen as business and taxpayers should be the friends of the tax administrators, thereby closing the gap between the tax administrators and the taxpayers. Time it was that a taxman believed that every taxpayer is a fraud. They will not declare the right income, they will not want to pay the right tax, and they will come with huge amounts of penalties, thereby making the taxpayer to feel disenchanted with the old tax system. But with the dwindling revenue from oil, government has realized that the mainstay of financing government projects is actually taxation, and government needs to manage the tax system very well.
Okay. In 2010, there was the national tax policy that was approved, but what are your thoughts on the implementation of it? If now that, as you say, people have come to realize, both government and the citizenry have come to realize the need for taxation, to pay their taxes, what about the implementation? How would you say it's been done?
Yeah, you will recall that the national tax policy was first of all recommended by the Dr. Phillips Committee on Review of Nigerian Tax System. And in year 2010, it was codified into a booklet after getting the contributions from various stakeholders. The recommendation of Dr. Phillips' group is that the National Assembly is supposed to be the guardian of the national tax policy. But as of now, we have the policy being kept with the Ministry of Finance. And there are so many issues raised in the national tax policy which Nigerian government, both at federal and state levels, are yet to actually implement. We believe that as government is realizing the need to get more revenue from non-oil sector, we believe that the implementation of the provisions of the national tax policy will come on board. Without the national tax policy, it's like driving a vehicle without a driver. National tax policy will signpost the Nigerian tax drive. It will point us to where we ought to go, and thereby making tax system in Nigeria to be in line with international best practices.
5 or 6 years down the line after that codification, it looks as if it's not been implemented, and it's almost due for a review.
It's already due for review.
Okay.
Ordinarily, Nigerian tax, every tax system is expected to be reviewed every 10 years. Now, the last review took place in 2003. Another one was due in 2013. But I won't deceive you, the implementation of the recommendations of the 2003 review was only completed in year 2011. Whereas 2004 supposed to have been the deadline for implementing the recommendations of the review of 2003.
Why do you think it took that long to implement recommendations?
Because of Nigerian factor, in the sense that not until the situation gets to the head, not until we have no alternative that we implement what we're supposed to implement. If not for the dwindling oil revenue, the current noise about revenue from taxation will not be as loud as it is. But we just hope that it's better late than never. It's high time Nigerian government wakes up and then we do it right. We should compare ourselves with what is happening in the international arena, rather than thinking that, oh, this is Nigeria, we can do it the way we like. We are number 7 or number 8 in terms of population in the world. But we should see what is happening in other climes, how they are practicing their tax system. Nigeria has a lot of revenue to be derived from taxation in this country. The national tax policy is there. The next thing will be to put the structures in place, because not all the structures are in place currently.
I was going to ask you about if we know, if the government has already realized that there's enough revenue to be derived from taxation. Is there a collection mechanism in place, an effective collection system? Because many will say, yes, we realize that, but what's the mechanism to collect these taxes? Do we have that kind of mechanism in place, an effective one?
Yeah. You know, Nigeria is a federation. We have the federal government, we have the state government, and we have the local government. At federal government level, you have the Federal Inland Revenue Service, which is the collection agent, which is the regulatory authority for that. And at state, we have the State Internal Revenue Services. Now, each regulatory authority ought to be autonomous by, first of all, having its own law and having the proper means, the legal means of funding its operations. At federal level, we have this 3% of cost of collection, 4% of cost of collection. That is 4% of non-oil taxes collected in the previous year to fund the current operation of the government. But at state level, we have less than 10 states being autonomous. So there is need for the states to, first of all, get its access together. They need to put the proper structure in place, because federal government cannot do it alone. Whatever federal government collects must still be shared by these state governments. If the situation is okay at the federal level, But at state level, we are not properly defined structure. It will still rub up negatively at the federal level. So we believe that the states should put up the appropriate structures. The state internal revenue services must be properly funded, must be properly structured, and the right laws are applied.
When you say the right laws, I'll take you back to that tax policy, the national tax policy we talked about. You said it's supposed to give direction. It's supposed to help in legislation and how the tax system is supposed to run.
Yeah.
Now, if it is now domiciled in the Ministry of Finance instead of being in the National Assembly or in the State Assembly, where they can also look at it and say, okay, this is what we need to do, how would it work to restructure, to reorganize our tax system so that we can move forward? Because, hey, it looks like this is the new cash cow.
Yeah. You can see that the number of people talking about taxation these days, there are so many.
Yeah.
And that means that the awareness is on the increase. With this awareness, people will start asking questions. Where is the national tax policy domiciled? Is it the right place it should be domiciled? Is it in line with international best practices? By the time people start asking questions, I believe that the relevant authorities will do it right. We believe that the national tax policy should still be domiciled with the National Assembly. Then, at state level, there is actually need to comply with the tax laws. Taxation is under the exclusive legislative list of our Constitution, meaning that it is only the federal government that has the authority to impose taxes, especially on income, as well as stamp duties, as well as capital gains tax. Now, the states are to collect. They are not to impose taxes in those areas.
So should that be? Does that part of our Constitution need a looking into to see what can be done?
Well,
so that the states can be allowed to be, as I say, so that we can actually run a federal system.
Yes, to run federal system, we can actually operate along that line, in the sense that, you know, we have historical background for making such taxes to be on the exclusive legislative list.